Good morning, everyone. Hello. All right. The time is now 10 a.m. So let's get this ball rolling. Good morning to all of you. Welcome today to our Tri-University Forum on Upskilling for Better Career Readiness. My name is Isaac. I am your moderator for the event this morning. Very big shout out to all of you students, audience members, especially if you are from one of our 3 headline universities for this event: Heriot-Watt University Malaysia, Xiamen University Malaysia, and the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. We're super grateful that you are all here watching this forum with us today. And if you are not from these 3 universities, because we know that we do have quite a bunch of you who are from other universities as well and attending this event, welcome, just the same. We're super glad that you are here with us this morning. So we hope you're all nice and comfortable wherever you are, whether you are watching this at home, whether you are watching this in class, okay, on the couch, okay, in bed. Get nice and comfy because we have a great topic today for very interesting panelists, and I am looking forward to sort of picking their brains and having a good chat with them. So hopefully today we'll pick up lots of interesting new tidbits about what it means, to be career ready and to prepare to upskill during this point in time. Now, before we get started, folks, just some few quick house rules. So for those of you who are here in the chat room with us, please remember to keep your microphone and your camera muted the whole time while we are talking. I know I joked earlier about some of you watching this in your bed, which is cool. Like, we appreciate your commitment to learning and to enriching yourselves, even while you're lounging around. But unless you kind of want to show off your pajamas to the rest of the world, maybe not a good idea to keep your camera on. So yeah, maybe just sort of keep that off the whole time. Okay. We will have a session later on at the end, in the second half of this forum for you to ask questions. For those of you who are here in the chat room with us, you can press the reaction button to raise your virtual hand. And for those of you who are watching this on any of the live streams, you can actually just sort of leave questions in the chat box, okay? And our team members will actually just sort of forward them over to me here. Okay. So don't worry, before we get into the Q&A, we will go over this again in more detail, but just letting you all know, so straight up, what to expect later on. All right then. So now you all didn't come here to hear me waffle on. So allow me to introduce our 4 guests of honor today, the stars of the show. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call on each of them in turn and ask them to sort of introduce themselves, tell us a bit about what they do, okay, what their role involves. And since this is a forum about upskilling, I'm going to have each of them answer a short, upskilling related icebreaker as well. And the question that I would like each of our panelists to answer as they're introducing themselves to all of you today is, what's the last book that they've read? If they can't recall the book, then what's the last, let's say, most interesting article that they have read? Okay. So with that said, allow me to introduce our first panelist for today. He's the Chief Operations Officer for Juristech, Naaman Lee. Naaman, could you please turn on your camera and mic and and say hi to our audience today?
Hi. Hey, thanks, Isaac. Great opening about staying in bed and watching this.
We can all relate, man. We can all relate.
Right. I'm handling operations in Jurist, and Jurist is a software company. We have provided solutions since the past 20 over years to the banks. We're actually a real software house. We develop software on our own, and there are around, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about 300 plus of us. And it's managing all these operations that's inside Jurist. So your question, Isaac, the last book. So how do I answer if I'm concurrently reading 2 or 3 books?
Feel free to just tell us what all of them are. Show off a little, man.
No, I'm not reading any new book, but because I'm like preparing for trainings and some refresher courses.
Mhm.
One is Crucial Conversations. I don't
Mhm.
know if any one of you has ever read this book. Awesome book on how to handle crucial conversation and definition of the crucial conversations.
Mhm.
And one is the dichotomy of leadership.
Okay.
And like I've read quite a lot of books through my career and my lifetime, but there are only less than 10 that I finished to cover. And
Mhm.
this dichotomy of leadership is one of them that I finished cover to cover. And now I'm still like picking on it to get points for my next activities.
Yeah.
It's an amazing book, this dichotomy of leadership. It has a predecessor. What do you call a predecessor of a book? Yes, a
Prequel?
prequel.
Prequel?
A prequel, yes. Yes, a prequel called, oh shucks, I've forgotten what is it called. Extreme ownership or extreme ownership.
All right.
These two awesome book. It's not a dry management book. It's you keep on turning the pages.
All right.
So thanks, Isaac.
All right. Thanks, Naaman. I can definitely relate. I too have read a few books in my time that just keep me coming back. You know, sometimes it's just really all about quality over quantity in that regard.
Yeah.
All right. So let's introduce our next panelist today. She is the EVP, Head of Talent Attraction, Workplace Futurization, and GHC Sustainability over at Maybank. Everyone, please say hi to Sophia Ang.
Okay, I should be saying hi to them first, yeah? Hi, everyone. Um, yeah, so I don't mean to actually have the longest designation there. If I could, if I had a choice, I would have just put group human capital. But I think, you know, giving some idea and flavor to everyone here, exactly what I do in the bank. So it's broken down to three parts. One is really looking into talent attraction, looking at different ways of attracting talents into the bank. And of course, you know, I spend a lot of time with people like yourselves and also other professionals. And then workplace futurization is really a lot about looking into different ways of preparing the workforce, the workplace, and a different type of work so that we are always relevant and future ready in that sense. So GHC sustainability it really stands on group human capital. Sustainability is all about building the culture of sustainability and also ensuring that the 42,000 Maybankers across the 18 countries that we've got, we actually advocate for sustainability and we truly embrace sustainability. So these are the areas that I touch on in the bank. And on the books that I'm reading, currently I'm actually on this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I think, you know, that's a fantastic book. If let's say if any of you here would like to pick the next book of yours, or if you've not read about it, this is my second time reading it. I think it's also a good reflection on how we should also be learning how to make tiny changes and how to also expect different results as well. Because I think the saying goes, right, if we are doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results, then that is really insanity.
Mhm.
So probably for all of us here, regardless of any age, any group, any background, um, making that little tiny changes would actually be expecting different results. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Sophia. Especially thanks for that great bit of wisdom. So early on in our panel today. Definitely, you do have quite a wide-reaching portfolio, and it will be interesting to have a conversation with you later about, you know, how you continue to sort of, you know, upskill and sort of, you know, stay abreast with all these three different areas of work that you handle. So glad to have you here with us, Sophia.
Thanks, Isaac.
All right. Our third panelist here with us this morning is the Head of Employer Branding and Campus Engagement at EY. Please welcome Eliana Anuar.
All right, good morning. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Isaac. Okay, so what I do at EY, actually my team and I, what we do is that we connect with university students, similar like Sophia as well. But for us, it's more for roles that are related to professional services firms, or like some people would like to call it as big four firms, right? So we connect with university students and helping them discover about the different career path that they can find in a professional services firms like EY, and also at the same time help them understand what are the different experiences that they can have if they were to join EY as well. Yeah. So that's basically in a summary of what we do. Of course, if I were to put it in a job scope, I mean, one page is definitely not enough, but let's just keep it at that. So in terms of the latest book, okay, if I remember correctly, I think the last one that I read, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't really read a lot, but what I can remember, the last one that I read is this book called The Little Book of Ikigai. So it's a Japanese philosophy. Ikigai is basically a Japanese philosophy, and it actually helps you focus on finding fulfillment, joy, and mindfulness, that kind of thing, like the Zen kind of book. So that was like my last book, the last book that I read, The Little Book of Ikigai.
I see. All right. Thank you so much for the introduction, Eliana. Okay, and definitely, I think I've read that book before too. We could all definitely use a lot more Zen and a lot more purpose and mindfulness in our lives during this particular period of time. So we're glad to have you here with us today, Eliana.
Thank you.
Okay, our final panelist here with us today is the head of the HR Center of Excellence at Shopee. Please welcome Kenneth Tan, everyone. Kenneth, could you please turn your mic and camera on and say a few words to our audience today?
Hello, hi everyone. Hi and welcome. Taking the time out this morning to join us. Yes, I oversee several portfolios in HR, but I think most relevant for our audience here is the fact that I also oversee campus recruitment and employer branding. And so we handle everything from recruiting fresh graduates for full-time roles for our flagship programs, the GLP, the Global Leaders Program, and also for interns, whether it's for our Shopee Apprentice Program or other forms of internships. Now, as for the last book that I've read, yeah, curiously enough, it was just last week. It's one of those things where the book's been purchased many years ago, buried somewhere, and suddenly resurfaced, and so purely by chance, happened to pick it up and started to read it. It was Graham Greene's Our Man in Havana spy thriller.
I see.
Yes.
All right. Kenneth, I can definitely relate with that. Having way too many, just buying books, leaving them somewhere, and be like, oh, hey, did I buy this like all these years ago? Wow, okay. Okay. But yes, glad to have you here with us, Kenneth. And hopefully our conversation today will be as thrilling as this last book that you've been reading.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
All right. So with that said, let's jump into our topic of discussion today. And I think seeing as how our main topic today is about upskilling for career readiness, perhaps let's get the ball rolling with a very sort of basic question to ensure that we're all on the same page. And that question is, what does it mean to be career ready, especially at a time like this when we're all just sort of moving out of the pandemic phase into this new endemic phase, and just trying to see, what awaits us in this brave new world right now, especially if you are a fresh graduate or a recent graduate who's just entering the workforce. So what does it mean to be career ready? Perhaps I would call on Eliana to get the ball rolling on us with this.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Isaac. So for me, being career ready actually means knowing that you are able to demonstrate your personal accountability and your effective work habits, So once you've graduated, of course, your lifestyle will change. So you need to know that, okay, I am able to be punctual at work. I know I can work productively. I know I can, I have the confidence to communicate with my stakeholders and knowing how to manage time professionally. Yeah, especially now as we are inching towards the endemic phase, right? Some companies like for EY, like we are still on hybrid mode. So on some days we work at home, and it's important to know how to be punctual at work, even if you are working from home. Yeah, so
Mhm.
these are the kind of things that the little things that we can actually see or define about being career ready, like how ready you are in terms of your personal accountability and upholding your responsibility in your role professionally. Yeah.
All right. Career readiness as personal accountability and upholding professionalism. Okay,
Mhm.
that's right. That's a very concise way of putting it. Okay, so thank you, Eliana, for getting the ball rolling on us there. Okay, Kenneth, perhaps you can go next. You know, what do you think it means to be career ready at this particular juncture in time?
Yeah, being professional, I think as Eliana said, is really the key word. Now, if I may draw a comparison, now I think many of us here, the panel, we've all done interviews with lots of people, both experienced hires and also students fresh out of school, have never worked before. And I think one of the key differences that you see between, someone who has been in the workforce, who is so-called career ready, as opposed to someone who is not, is the fact that they carry themselves differently. The serious candidates tend to be ones who are prepared, they've done their homework, they are professional, they are well-groomed, they are punctual. And again, these are things that sound extremely basic, for someone who has gone into the office and seen what it's like to work in the office. But if you think about a university student, you wear your casual clothes, you go to school, you may or may not be punctual depending on what the how strict the school is, on things like that. And these impressions, do make an impact as to what the companies or the interviewer may think of you, may perceive you. And I might also add that perception is extremely important at this stage, simply because for a lot of fresh graduates, there's really not a lot you can see in a CV, because you may not have as many career experiences, may not have as many internships, may not have done many extracurricular. So the thing that is important for you to carry across is your sense of professionalism, your sense of eagerness, your sense of enthusiasm. What makes you stand out from the next guy.
All right. Okay, thanks, Kenneth. Okay, actually, on that note, seeing as how both you and Eliana have mentioned similar points about professionalism and standing out, even when working remotely. What are some ways in which students can sort of project that image, even through, let's say, sort of digital medium like this? Kenneth, Eliana, either of you can sort of chip in.
Okay, so for me, it's being engaged. Yeah, so I mean, this is based on personal experience as well, because I've worked with interns who didn't have any working experience, and I've worked with fresh graduates who have had some experience while they had their internship, right? So now as we're working remotely, of course we can't see each other face to face, and one of the ways I think for them to demonstrate that they are actually in this job, they are focused at work, is by connecting and not constantly but consistently being engaged, checking in with me or checking in with other team members, and making sure that they are not like just quiet or not knowing what they're doing. So, or that's one of the ways that people can, that these graduates or these interns can do to show that, okay, I am focused in this work. I know what I'm doing, or if I don't know what I'm doing, I can ask someone. And showing visibility is one of the ways for me. Yeah.
Right. So being engaged and showing visibility. All right. Thanks, Eliana. I think that is a very good way to sort of get that across, even through digital mediums of communication.
Yeah, because otherwise you won't see people in person, right? So
yeah,
being visible is very, very important.
Yeah, that is very true. Okay. All right. So perhaps we can get Naaman to give us a different perspective on what it means to be career ready at this point in time, given his position in charge of operations at his organization.
Yeah, being called for a third person, it took away all your points, right? So that's so I just want to address it from maybe a different perspective, and I'm going to offer two two perspectives here. Let's say from the employer's perspective and the fresh grad, the student's perspective, right? We are all fresh grads here, right? It means there's no experienced job applicants, hopefuls, right? So it's all fresh grad. So now, from the employer's perspective, right? That means when we look at the career-ready applicants, especially fresh grad, there's certain expectation that we have, right? What have you gotten out of that 3 or 4 years that you are in the academic years? Your CGPA is a good measurement, Yasli, right? Because the whole 4 years, your only purpose in life is to make that CGPA up or WAM, right? So that means, then do you have that knowledge on, let's say if you're applying for anything that's programming related or IT related, do you know programming concepts, the syntax or whatever that is taught in your school? And normally the interview questions are on that, right? And when you are able to answer it, great, like you have checked the major boxes, right? So these fundamentals are important when you are in a university. So make sure you understand the fundamentals that's been taught, right? And when you go to that interview session, you have that being able to articulate out. Now, however, there's one thing that just now I just picked my interest, right? When Kenneth was saying enthusiasm, right? So that enthusiasm is so important. So let's break down the word enthusiasm. Willingness, curiosity, enthusiasm, right? That means you want to learn, you want to absorb, and you want to do more and consistently improve when you get that job. That is what sets you apart, right? After you ace that interview, you have been offered that job, but your enthusiasm, your willingness to absorb more, learn, produce, improve, work well in a team, help others, and you're on your way to be a leader, right? You're on your way for career success, right? So I just want to end on this, right? My advice to fresh grad, no matter what side of the divide you're on, whether you're on Team Amber Heard or Team Johnny Depp, whether CGPA is important or not, get that CGPA as high as possible, right? Because that's important. We actually do look at CGPA because out of the thousands of applications, the only criteria is filtering the CGPA first. Only then we look at the content of your resume.
All right, thanks, Naaman. You actually said something very poignant there in that, we're all fresh graduates here. And I think that sums up, what you were sharing very well in the sense, you were saying that sense of curiosity and enthusiasm, is what carries you forward, throughout your career. And also you're sort of knowing your fundamentals and your basics and always sort of going back to them. And sort of stepping backwards and sort of re-looking at the fundamentals, no matter what stage of your career you are. So I think there was something very poignant in that, what it means to be career ready is, we're all fresh graduates, no matter what age we are, and it's important that we maintain that mindset as we go through our careers. All right, Sophia, why don't you give us your take now on what it means to be career ready at a time like this?
So Naaman, when you said that, you're the third, when you're the last panelist to go, then you're pretty much quite stuck. There's nothing much you can add on already. So I'll attempt this. Probably I can also extrapolate from what Naaman had shared from an employer's point of view as well, because I think that would be quite meaningful for the audience here today. So I think what happens is that as an employer, I think, our job is to make sure that we are also not just recruiting or identifying people, whether they are career ready through a checklist, through a 30-minute conversation where, hey, it's a matter of whether you speak well or not. So the job of an employer is really to be able to partner one through, even in their first year of studies, all the way until they are graduating from school. And we are able to see them more than just one occasion, more than two occasions. And I can safely say, the fresh graduates or even entry-level talents, regardless whether you've got a bachelor's degree or any sort of levels of skills, I think the thing is that we actually know them more than 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. In fact, our management trainees, I've known them since their first year of studies.
Yeah.
So I think the essence of an employer is to really look into establishing various types of platforms and enabling and allowing talents to showcase what they've got, right? Whether or not they are good at speaking, whether they are actually an actor by their own interest, or whether or not someone who is highly analytical and all. I think the part where Kenneth mentioned about what makes you stand out, I think you just need that stage for the different actors on the stage to be able to showcase what they've got, and then that's where you're able to differentiate the talents rather than just the talents themselves saying it and verbalizing it, but they can actually put it into actions and to be able to showcase these talents to the various employers. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then maybe I'll just end on this note. The fact is that it is a lot about understanding the context versus the content, because you can have all the skills that you've got, all the qualifications that you've got, but then the application of the skills in the context that we are all in, then I think if that's not done, then it beats the point if you can be the best coder of the world, but you are not able to provide solutions, offerings, products, services. Yeah. So I think this would actually be what I would want to share from my perspective of how we want to see how ready one is in their career or even in life. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Sophia. Again, a very sort of good point that you sort of brought up earlier, in the sense that a huge part of being career ready is the ability to know how to sort of cultivate and maintain these relationships and networks, throughout the years. I think that's something that that many of us who are starting out early in our careers often overlook at times. So thank you to all of you for your great input on this topic. So moving on to our next point of discussion, let's talk about upskilling and ask our panelists about their experiences with upskilling themselves. So let's see. Seeing as how Sophia went last earlier, perhaps we'll give her the privilege to go first this time. Okay. What are some of the ways that that you've been upskilling yourself to sort of stay relevant in your career journey?
Yeah, thanks, Isaac. Okay, that's a good one. I am actually, I maybe a bit of story of how I started building up my career is I'm a biotech graduate by training, and I would always introduce myself as that I'm a scientist by training, a banker by accident, and a HR professional by choice. So how I actually pivoted in my career, not once but twice, and I think my journey as a professional doesn't end in HR, or maybe there could be also other parts in the businesses and other functions that I have yet to explore. And I was once a management trainee in General Electric, and knowing that that's not really what I wanted to do, then I went on to be a management trainee in the bank, and now I've been with the bank for 13 to 14 years and still counting. So I think how I build it is that having the understanding that the degree really doesn't define who you are, and more so it should not be limiting the options that you've got. So I used to think that I studied biotech and my life will always be around the four walls of a lab, and always revolving around fruit flies, because I was actually a major a specialist in fruit flies. But little did I know now that I have actually gone beyond that four walls, and a banker and a HR professional. And you can imagine the extremes that I've gone through, from something that is highly scientific to something that is highly artistic in the scope of work that I do. So how I continue on doing what I do is that I think that joining the right organization, of course, has enabled me to do a lot of very different things in the 13 years that I've been with the bank. But I think, it is also onto the individual to be able to find that value that you bring to the table. Because at the end of the day, all of us, we are all part of an ecosystem, and the ecosystem, everyone plays a very different part and different role. So you need to find yourself, where do you fit in that ecosystem, and how do you bring that value to the table, and so that as you can see, my job title actually, it spans from talent attraction to even sustainability. And I was also involved in the setup of QR Pay and all sorts and all sorts. So I think it's a lot about the individual on finding that value and what you've got to offer. And how are you able to also imagine that you are not just holding one job. In fact, I am holding multiple jobs. I think that would actually give you that drive to be able to stay curious and to see what's available out there that you want to be able to achieve as an individual, also together with the team. So yeah, so I think the environment has also shaped that a lot, because while I'm leading some projects in the bank, I'm also a member of some of the teams in the bank too. So while you want to lead your career, sometimes you may want to actually follow a career, then subsequently you'll be able to lead your own career. Yeah. So maybe that's something that I will want to take a pause and pass it on to the rest.
All right, thanks, Sophia. Perhaps we can have, let's see if we can have Kenneth go next. You know, what have you been doing to sort of upskill and sort of stay relevant at this current time?
Oh wow. Well, that's it's nice to hear Sophia, having an unconventional background. I think I've also got a fairly unconventional background, certainly by Malaysian standards. I studied archaeology at university. It's one of those things where when you come back, most people will probably tell you, what exactly are you going to do for a job? How employable are you? And it's one of those things where I guess, you have to be able to then try whatever it is that there is, learn as much as you can. And I think many people will be in that situation. A lot of fresh grads will wonder what they want to do, not really sure. You spend the first couple of years exploring different options. And as you start learning, as you start experimenting with different things, then you probably settle down into you sort of start to find your passion somewhere. And these passions may also change over time. Different phases in your life, in your career, you may end up finding interest in different things. So where I am in right now, e-commerce, when you start thinking about it, in this region, it's a fairly new thing. And some of those people who, some of my more experienced colleagues here in e-commerce, they never started off in e-commerce. Some of them were bankers, they were, Big Four consultants, they were doing various other jobs in other industries. I myself, started off in the media and entertainment industry, transitioned into property development and then fintech, and then suddenly now I'm in e-commerce. And I think the key thing here is, to always try to stay relevant. Don't be afraid to, and by that what I mean is, don't be afraid to try new things. There is rarely a one size fits all career path. Banking and consulting are very typical things that people think about, but even then, not everyone spends their whole 20-30 years in one industry. For many of you, it will be a path that takes you in and out and onto other things. And the one good thing I would say in this day and age is people are starting to become much more open-minded, both employers and employees. Those days you start thinking about the typical sort of a career paths, your banking, accounting, become a doctor, that sort of thing. These days, some guy, working in a tech, sitting in a cafe, he could be a sort of a tech billionaire for all you know. And it's become much more accepted to do so-called unconventional jobs, freelancing, gig economy. These things, also contribute in their very own way. And people start finding, various different motivations in life, certain things that they would rather do because it affords them flexibility, a certain lifestyle, and yet also, give them a proper career to build on. So yeah, that's what I would say to I think a lot of our audience here. You have a lot of your conventional jobs, but also increasingly you start finding new avenues opening, particularly with the pandemic coming, particularly with a lot of tech companies coming up. The world is actually very different now, than say even pre-pandemic. Even the emphasis of people's behavior, consumer behavior, the way they act, behave, they shop, they live, a lot of these have changed.
All right. Thanks, Kenneth. Very poetic career trajectory, I must say, from unearthing rare artifacts in the ground, to unearthing rare talent on the ground. Okay.
Yes.
I can definitely relate. I think I too am part of the Unconventional Career Trajectory Club. I think back when I was in university, I did a lot of studying on classical era history, as well as medieval and Renaissance literature, poetry, history, all that kind of stuff. So if we ever do meet in real life, I think we've got like a really nerdy conversation. Okay. All right. Thanks, Kenneth. Perhaps we can have Naaman go up next and tell us a bit about his journey upskilling himself and so staying relevant, throughout the course of his illustrious career.
Yeah, we should form a gang club, buy ourselves some Harley Davidson and then form a gang. I studied mechanical engineering and now I'm like trying to oversee 100 programmers and business analysts. Right? So, yeah. So the thing that I see from the whole journey is that there are three words maybe aptly describe what I experienced: right? Observations, application, and intentionality. Right. So when we have meetings, when we have brainstorming sessions, when we just have a casual talk with our colleagues, with our peers, that observation part is so important so that we can learn from them. It doesn't mean that you don't learn from your subordinates, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the learning is a lifelong journey and you just keep on learning, right? The ideas that they have, the approach that they have, wow, so good, right? Then how do we apply it? How in my position, I can actually make a difference if I apply it company-wide, unit-wide, team-wide, and how's the application gonna be? Right? What's the best way to apply these things that we gather or the ideas from other people, right? And how to then nurture, improve, build on that idea, right? So then the last one is the intentionality part, right? Do we really have an intention to upskill? Do we really want to upskill? If we do, hey, you haven't been reading a book for the last 2 weeks. It's bad, right? So, hey, let's be intentional about it. Let's pick up a book, no matter if it's a dry management book. One of it is called High Output Management. I'm sorry, Andy Grove. You guys know Andy Grove? I think he's like one of the CEO of Intel, and I think he is the one that turned around Intel to make it into the Foresight.
Right, yes.
Right. And he wrote an awesome book, and you can get so many great pointers out of it, but it's so dry. It makes you do not want to read a management book again. But then the intentionality part comes in. You want to be intentional to upskill yourself, right? So yeah, that's what I can share before sharing too much.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Naaman. Again, you raised a very good point. I think cultivating that sort of mindset of intentionality, is definitely a key part of the upskilling process. And as you mentioned earlier, I think a large part of our learning actually does come from sort of conversations and the things that we pick up from other people around us. Regardless of their position, regardless of their status, because we just pick up just so much from other people around us when we engage and open ourselves up and establish those relationships and connections. Okay, so I think just to sort of throw back to something Sophia said earlier about relationships and connections and maintain that professional network and how that contributes towards your career readiness as well.
Yeah, so that part when Sophia was saying that I've forgotten the verbatim of it. We are not limited by our academic choices, right? When we choose what course we're in, that's so true, right? who in their like 20 years old, right? I don't know when you start to choose, or 19-year-old, that knows that I want to be a coder. Hey, I want to be a, I don't know, commercial manager in Shopee. Right? So you wouldn't know, right, whether it suits you or not. Right? So the pivot happens all the time.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We saved the best for last. All right. So Eliana, perhaps you can share with us, what you've been doing to sort of upskill and sort of stay relevant.
Yeah,
during this particular period of time.
sure. And of course, I have to thank Naaman, Sophia, and Kenneth for leaving me some of the pointers for me to share as well. Yeah, I mean, for me, okay, I wouldn't say that my background is too different from what I'm doing now, but of course, when I tell put people around me back then when I was just about to join EY that I'm joining a professional services firm, and then they were like, why? Because my background is actually in mass communication. So I was previously in creative and branding agencies, doing brand campaigns for FMCG brands, all sorts of clients, mainly focusing on advertising and branding campaigns. And then suddenly I'm making this shift to a professional services firm and being in a HR department. So that's like a double whammy for people around me. They're like, what? Why is a sudden change of career? But then again, I wouldn't say it because I know my path. So I wouldn't say that the path is too different than what I have imagined when I first started my career. Because for me, I had a plan. Okay, but of course, my principle is that have a plan, but don't be so rigid about it. Leave some room to wiggle around, be flexible about your plan, but at least you have some kind of a direction in terms of where you want to lead your career to. And I know this might not work for some people, especially those who come from like really unconventional background, but for some of us, it might work. So for me, it worked that way, and I had a plan in the beginning. Okay, I started off in a branding in an advertising agency, and I knew I wanted to build my foundation working in agencies for X number of years before I move on to corporate side, because by then I think I know the ins and outs of how all these large multinational companies build their advertising strategy or creative campaigns. So because we are the one who are the brains behind it. So that was my plan. And then, so I stuck with that plan. I spent a few years working in creative agencies. And then when I was ready to make that move to corporate side, what I didn't expect was for me to join a professional services firm and doing employer branding. I never heard about employer branding in the beginning. And I have to thank my boss, Sufan, for giving me the opportunity and the trust to be in this role, because having a background in branding in advertising, employer branding didn't come across to us at all, because what we did was mainly consumer products, those above the line advertising kind of thing. And employer branding is, little that I know, is actually almost like advertising as well, but it's actually attracting talents to build their career with an organization. So in a way, it's still related to branding and marketing, but it's not the straightforward consumer brand kind of advertising. It's more of advertising the different career path, the experiences that you can have in a particular organization. So for me, that was how I built my career. I had a plan, kind of like a direction. I wouldn't say a plan. I had a direction in a way, and I stuck to it. And I didn't mind being a bit more flexible as well, because when you let yourself, explore all the different opportunities, then you realize that, there are so many other opportunities out there. Yeah, because this is the same experience that I had when I interact with accounting students, and they didn't realize that, actually with my accounting degree, I didn't have to necessarily be an auditor. I can also be a consultant. I can also join the consulting arm. So these are the kind of things that they didn't know. Yeah. So for me, number one, have a plan and be open to be flexible about it. And then the other thing that I did as I was building my career was I consciously try and remind myself to be a step ahead from my superior. try. If you can't, then at least try. Be a step ahead. Anticipate what your manager or your boss is going to think or ask, so that you know you have it prepared. If something comes to you, if you're being asked about something, you have the answers prepared. So these are the kind of little behavior or skills that you can start building as you start your career. Yeah, anticipate what's coming ahead, so that you know when you are in that position, when you're in that role, then you are then again another step ahead from maybe your director, then another step ahead from your CEO. So always be a step ahead from your superior if you can. Okay, so that's more on the behavior part. And on the upskilling part, of course, I like to call it as my personal reinvention. You know, every now and then, not to say that I completely reinvent myself to change to a completely different person. No, it's not like that. But of course, personal reinvention means, you know, at times when you think you have a bit more time to work on your self-development, that's the time for you to then analyze your knowledge gaps. Like now, for example, I see more and more people use data visualization platforms like Power BI. So maybe if you ask me 3-4 years ago, this is something that I would only relate to IT professionals or tech career professionals, but actually now it's becoming more and more common. And being able to use this kind of platform like data visualization actually helps a lot in your career, regardless of your role. So that's one thing. Find your knowledge gap and find opportunity to learn if you can, because in order for you to be relevant, yeah, you need to be open to both upskilling and also reskilling. So meaning you don't just grow your skills for you to move forward in your current role, but at the same time, find other skills that can also help you expand in case you want to explore different career opportunities. So at least you have some of the hard and soft skills that you need as well. So yeah, that's some of my point of view on this particular question.
All right, thanks, Eliana. Again, lots of great points there. You know, just sort of having that plan, anticipating as far ahead as possible, and sort of staying one step ahead, but also just sort of holding on to that, you know, like loosely and sort of being willing to be like water, in a sense. You know, constantly moving, constantly changing, constantly just sort of, you know, taking on different forms depending on the situation, you know, that's required. So again, great wisdom from all of our panelists today. And I think one thing that perhaps, you know, we can sort of point out to all of our viewers who are watching this is that, you know, I think all of us here have been through, like, you know, very different career trajectories to get to where we are today. And so, yeah, that sort of process of continuous learning and reinvention and upskilling is something that every single one of us who's in our career has to sort of go through at various stages. And that's something for us all to think about as well. Well, since we're talking about changes, let's move on to our next point of discussion. And this is just about, you know, what are some of the changes that we have seen across the various industries that our panelists sort of work in, you know, and how that might have affected, you know, what they look for in terms of their hiring. So we have reps today from the IT industry, from banking, from professional services, from e-commerce. So you know, we should have like a nice range of sort of views here about what's going on out there in the market. Perhaps I'd like to call on Naaman first, you know, to sort of tell us a bit about, you know, just briefly about, you know, what sort of major changes have been happening in his line of work during this current period of time.
Wow, the major changes is so rapid and so many things going on. It's actually mind-blowing to the point of it's sometimes difficult or nearly impossible to keep up, right? So let's talk about maybe the common ones that people know, right? Blockchain, AI, IoTs, and stuff like that. At the core of it, there's still programming that needs to be done, but the application of it, the innovative applications of it, and the idea or new ways for us to do things, right? So let's talk about blockchain, right? Anybody here knows what's blockchain? Maybe, you know. Okay, so like blockchain, I think was came out from this thing called Bitcoin, right? Then the whole technology of it then was taken further. And have you guys heard of Ethereum?
Yep, I have. Yeah.
Ethereum, right? It's a new petrol RON 92.
Price goes up and price goes down all the time. Yes, I get what you mean.
Now,
Yeah.
Ethereum is actually like, a close competitor to Bitcoin, if I put it that way, but they are more organized, structured, and they have their own language that's open up, and you can have a community there. It's actually gaining quite a big advantage. Now, what I'm trying to say is that these innovations are great, and they are like crucial or critical for the progress of humankind. But not all of them are good, and there's actually a dark side to it. So let me try to explain that. Like Ethereum, based on crypto, smart contracts, and all this stuff. Anyone here invest in crypto?
I do a little bit.
And how is that working out for you, Eliana?
Because I'm not a big investor, so it didn't impact me as much. Yeah, but of course you can still feel it a little bit. So I am quite aware of how the trend is going now.
Right, so it's on the negative side.
Yeah. Personally, I'm a staunch anti-crypto person because I used to work as a financial journalist, so I know what the fundamentals are behind it, and I'm like, no, I don't think this is a sound decision.
Yeah, so Isaac, maybe one day we can have coffee and then just discuss the pros and cons of it, right? Now, the thing is like this, but Eliana, if you are investing in crypto, then look into NFTs.
Actually, I thought about that as well. And yeah, this is part of my learning journey as well. I am still trying to figure out, okay, I've heard of this platform that where it hosts all the local artists, and I think it's called Pentas.io or something. So that's where all the local artists host their NFTs there. And I know all these big celebrities are buying all these, artworks and stuff to invest. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around it of how NFT really works. I'm still actually, even for crypto, I wouldn't say that I am a master at it already. I invest just for the sake of understanding how it works. And at least, when we have this kind of conversations, and I know, okay, what the market is like now, and then the differences between the different currencies and things like that. So NFT is one interesting area that I would like to explore as well.
Yeah.
So what are some applications of the blockchain, that you think our audience should be aware of with regards to your industry right now, Nate?
Okay, now let's look at the good part of it, right? Smart contracts, right? So that means blockchain. I don't want to go into like a basic 101 intro bootcamp or whatever, right? But by the nature that's immutable, when you put in as a smart contract, the application of it. So imagine this: if blockchain can be used for insurance claims, right? So doesn't mean much yet, right? But imagine this: what if there is a way for us to know that this victim is the victim of flood, right? Who lives in Sri Muda or Shah Alam, right? It's close to your heart, right? So what if there are IoT sensors out there that measures rainfall at whatever location, and then when the rainfall hits a certain threshold, when a smart contract is being redeemed upon, that hey, it's true, it's valid, I don't need adjusters, pump, okay, payout is made, right? And it's actually not a fantasy. It is being done in, I think it's in the States, in the agricultural industry, where if that rainfall or whatever is on certain threshold, that insurance can be claimed, right? So that means you eliminate so much paperwork, so many, don't know what intermediaries, adjusters, don't know, whatever, right? So great stuff, great stuff on that. But now, what about the bad stuff? Right? There's so much serious bad stuff going on, which I don't want to scare any of us here. But I just want to give a story, right? in 2016, I think, I might get the year wrong. In 2016, Ethereum launched this thing called the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. I don't know how to pronounce it, DAO or whatever. And it's a big thing. That means, right, it is a way for you to invest, to buy into that currency, the Ethereum. And it's like, there is no way for it to be manipulated. There's no way for it to be, you know, stock markets you can manipulate, right? So that's right. The whole idea is awesome and great, right? 3 months into it, it was hacked, money was siphoned off.
Yes.
Right. A lot of people is like on the verge of losing all their investment. Ethereum made, and they can't do anything because it's immutable. What they did was they actually fork out. They split out that currency because there are people in there or communities in there that says, no, you can't reverse this. You can't reset things. But one group says, no, this is very wrong. This is an evil thing that a hacker has stolen money. We are gonna split out then if you are not agreeable. So actually Ethereum now is being splitted. I think one is called Ethereum, one is called Ethereum Classic, ETC and ETH. And these are like, this is huge, right? This is like, if you research on this, the DAO attack on Ethereum, and this is just like a tip of the iceberg of what the hackers can do. So that's why the good thing is it gives rise to a whole new segment of IT web security. Right? You can build your whole career on it, right? But you're always on the defense and just waiting for the attacks, right? And no matter how good your noble, your idea or invention is, the moment there is something to be gained by the attackers, they will attack it, right? So that's the bad part about the whole IT industry. And I just want to end on this note. It's not so commonly acknowledged fact that this industry suffers from one thing called disinformation. Right? What's disinformation? Fake news, fake information to gain something, to launch a campaign and gain something. Right? Gartner estimated that globally, $78 billion is lost on disinformation. And now with all the ready technologies and platform that's available, any guy with a bad malicious intention can do a lot of things, right? And disinformation or fake news reaches people 6 times faster, right, than normal information, and 20 times more broadly than factual information, right? So that's the bad thing that I'm seeing, right? The good thing is great, right? But there's the bad stuff. So any one of the students here, you want to go into web security, right? You always want to play defense. Great, right? The world needs you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Naaman.
In knowledge, right? Sorry, I'm leading something. Okay.
No worries. Thanks, Naaman. Very, very good point, actually. I think one thing that's definitely needed, I think for all of us who are sort of working in this day and age, is the sense to be able to evaluate, information critically, as well as just sort of look at media, just sort of look at like media literacy, critical readings of sources and information. And I think that's definitely something that that all of us do have to pay more attention to in this age of post-truth, as they say. Okay. Eliana, perhaps we can call on you next. What are some changes that you've seen in your industry, or your line of work, and how does that affect the kind of skills that you're looking for?
Okay, so for us in the professional services firm, we're actually seeing this change in client mindset where people are moving towards digital transformation and this kind of thing. Like they want to restructure everything, they want to digitize everything. So a big theme that has been the big theme that we're seeing is that, of course, the use of technology like AI. Yeah, so that leaves organizations like us with no choice but to keep up with the technology or with the demand from our clients as well. And we're aware that all of this is happening because many of our clients actually they use technology not just to build resilient supply chains, but also to reduce things like risk. They want to optimize their performance. And at the same time creating new lines of service or products as well. So so all of that has actually created this spike in tech demand for talents. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think I can safely say that the trend is expected to continue over the next few years. And so that's one of the trends that I have identified from especially from the start of the pandemic in our industry particularly. Yeah, so it's mainly driven by technological demand, tech background, and then students with knowledge in technology. So that's why I always advise the students that I connect with or talk to that having a degree alone is not enough. Yeah, and you need to know how to be versatile, and that's why, again, linking to my earlier point or our earlier discussion, reskilling or upskilling is very important. So that's why, you know, like for people who come from normal background, you know, not a social science background, for example, some of them don't have any tech knowledge or tech foundation. So, you know, take the opportunity to learn so that you become an all-rounder and more like a versatile kind of talent as well. So the other thing that I noticed in terms of recruitment trends is that this is more of an observation that we know. Excuse me. So this is more like an observation that we've noticed coming from the talents or the candidates who apply to us. We noticed that a lot more students now have become more cognizant or more aware of what they want from employers. Yeah. So for people like us, like employers, we need to stay abreast of what the market is looking for, you know, providing like flexibility, kind of working hours, mobility opportunities, remote working options. I get a lot of these questions from fresh graduates, from students. Oh, how does it work? What sort of mobility opportunities do you offer? Do you guys still work remotely? Do you have flexible working hours? I don't remember asking all of this when I started my career, you know? So
Yeah.
this is one of the things that I have observed coming from our candidates or our talent pool now. You know, that having that well-being support is very important for them as well. Yeah.
All right. On a related note, Eliana, because you mentioned about tech demand earlier, you know, what are some tips that you have, you know, for let's say graduates or candidates from a non-tech background? What can they do to sort of, you know, be prepared for this?
Yeah, so actually this does not apply. I'm not just giving advice to students. This applies to me as well because I am also learning. We're all in this whole lifelong journey process, right? But for me, and I think it can be relatable to the students as well. Try to find something that you know you can apply in most of the things that you do in your life, like in your career or, you know, in your social life. So like what I mentioned earlier, for me, it's about learning like one step at a time. Okay, so like for me, I would like to learn more about data visualization, because once I know how to navigate and understand how to use this platform correctly, how I can build my own dashboard to present my data in an interesting and engaging way, then I can actually apply this throughout all my presentation to my stakeholders. I can use this to manage the social groups that I'm in. So find that knowledge gap that you think can help you in becoming more tech ready. So like for me, learning about Power BI, learning about data visualization is one of the knowledge gaps that I think I want to improve on. So like for the students out there, the key is find what is your knowledge gap in terms of the tech related areas, and then find a starting point. Yeah, if you want to learn coding, you might not see the importance of it now, but try to relate it. How can understanding coding help you in your work or in your social life or in your passion or in your hobby? Yeah. So these are the kind of things that I think students can do to find that knowledge gap and actually pursue an area of knowledge to build their knowledge as well.
All right. Thanks, Eliana. That's very great advice about identifying knowledge gaps and being on the constant lookout on how we can fill them. Okay. Sophia, perhaps we can call on you next. You know, what are some big changes in your line of work, and you know, how has that changed the skills you're looking for right now?
Okay, I think from an industry standpoint, I think all of you here would have also heard the issuance of digital banking licenses.
Mhm.
And I think, the greatest discovery or realization here is that knowing non-banks can actually be in banking business. I think
Yep.
that's one thing that is as unconventional as it gets. Yeah. So some may say that banking is actually conventional, but I would also say that banking is getting unconventional as it gets, right? Because bank as a business may not be as how it used to, but banking as a business is still an important element in the whole value chain and the whole ecosystem that we're in, right? So what we are also seeing is that or maybe a question that a lot of you I have actually been getting from is that why does Maybank not apply for a digital bank license? But Maybank is already a bank, and we already have a digital bank arm. So hence that's why we need not actually apply for a digital bank license. But you see, what we are really trying to do here is that I still recall when I was roped in, part of the team to launch the first QR payment system for the bank. And we were the first bank to launch it way back in 2018. That was very much pre-pandemic. I think a lot of you probably at that point in time did not even have any e-wallets in your mobile phones and all that, right? So I think what we learned at that point in time is that while we try to actually drive uh, cashless payment and with just us on our own, we weren't able to do that. So I think the one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that now I think on average each of us would probably have like 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think at every counter of every merchant that you see, you probably see their preferences towards the various e-wallets that we've got. So I think what we are seeing is as well from an industry standpoint is that no longer that exclusivity, but it's more a lot about partnerships. I think for the bank, we've partnered with so many different partners that we never established that kind of partnerships. Shopee is one of them, right? So I think what we are seeing is that those conventional partnerships have also evolved to unconventional partnerships. You don't no longer see the usual suspects doing partnerships, but then now more and more unusual suspects coming together and form partnerships and collaborations. So I think what we are also trying to establish as an industry as well is that at the end, we want to be able to see how we play a part in that whole value chain. And then for the bank is that I think there are 3 main priorities that we are really, really looking into and how these aspirations would drive the different strategies and how we organize ourselves in the bank, and also how, of course, we are looking into talents specifically driving these aspirations. One is that we've made a pledge that every process that we have in the bank, it has to be digitally pervasive. Yeah. Regardless of whether it's a people process, operational process, or business process, everything has got to be digitally pervasive. And then, of course, all of these would have to also be driving from what the customer wants. No longer what the bank can offer, but more so what the customer wants, right? Customer centricity and ensuring that everything is driven from the customer's perspective. And then I think the last part is that I'm sure this is nothing new to all of us here on this call, is a lot about sustainability. I think investors, borrowers, lenders, all of us are looking into how we can ensure that we can not just looking into turning all of us to be carbon neutral, net neutral overnight, but I think the role of a bank here, what we can do is to be able to make that just transition, to be able to help not just how banks look into how we lend money, how we are redesigning our risk management, our credit system to ensure we are able to provide better green financing, to be able to provide incentives to drive not just how we operate, but also the borrowers that we've got. And more so, we are also helping the communities around us, our suppliers, our vendors, our merchants, all of these to be part of this just transition. So sustainability is definitely a key aspiration for the bank and for the industry as well. I think I can go deeper as to what Bank Negara has also issued in their financial sector blueprint. You probably want to have a look at it and see what are the things that, or what sort of targets that we have set ourselves. And just some highlights and some extracts from it is that traditionally the blueprint is for 10 years. Now it has gone down to 5 years. That goes to show the kind of emphasis, the kind of focus that we are putting in to ensure that we are able to provide that kind of financial well-being, the kind of options for alternative financing, and of course the sustainable and the green financing part, and many other aspects. Yeah, so this would give you a bit of flavor how the industry is changing and how Maybank is also staying ahead and ensuring that we are able to keep up to these changes, and more so how we can influence and shape the industry. And ultimately, really, I think it goes back to Maybank's mission is really all about being at the heart of community. So how do we continue to stay relevant at every community that we are in? Yeah. So I think in terms of how work is going to be designed or how work is going to be done, one thing for sure, the conventions of career pathing, the conventions of one person going into one job, one person going into one box. If you guys know how organizational charts are designed, but in Maybank, we are all in different circles, and we are all holding multiple portfolios. And a lot of the work that we do is very much skill based. So as you are, a lot of you graduating out from your schools, or you're thinking of what sort of job that you are going to, I think perhaps maybe it's also about time for you to look into how your skills can come up, and what sort of skills that you can actually apply for the various areas that you might get yourself into, rather than just aiming to be an auditor, for example, or aiming to be a commercial banker. But then we've got commercial bankers who are in digital, who are in HR, and different parts of the bank too. So it's very much skill based, and whether or not would you require a full-term employment versus a gig, or versus do you even need a degree qualification for you to get into some of these functions and some of these responsibilities. I think that's something for you to also ponder upon, is that many organizations are actually going beyond the traditions of a specific degree or a specific school. For us, we've got people coming from non-degree background working in the bank. We've got people coming from non-banking finance accounting background working in the bank. So yeah, so this actually would at least give you some of the latest happenings in the industry, as well as how the recruitment has also changed a little bit based on these requirements and these changes as well.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Sophia. That was a lot of ground there, a lot of good information. I think just one thing that stood out to me is, was a topic on sustainability in the banking and finance industry. I think you're right. That is a very deep topic to get into. Pro tip for any of our audience members or viewers, if you're still thinking of what's a good question to ask, that's a good one to sort of dive into later. Okay, during our Q&A. So thanks for sharing all of that, Sophia. All right, Kenneth, why don't you share a bit about what are some big changes in your line of work and how that's changed the kind of skills that you're looking for right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to briefly touch upon what Sophia said, I think one key observation is it's interesting how things are starting to converge. You have traditional industries going into less conventional things, like how we assume a bank is very conventional, but it's actually going out into a lot of digitizing in many ways. And similarly, how companies like us, Shopee is essentially a tech company, but yet we are also the touch points that we have with our customers, with our stakeholders, are very much things that are conventional. The buying and selling of goods, the buying and selling of food, and then subsequently also things like banking. So let's just bring us back briefly. I think many of you will be familiar with e-commerce. It is one of the things that rightly or wrongly, has benefited from the pandemic, you know, simply because of its nature. It's managed to be extremely relevant, you know, because of lockdowns, because of the fact that, you know, shops are closed, you can't go out, you know, you try to avoid crowds. Suddenly, you know, this whole industry of riders boom. You know, people can start buying and selling online, get everything from you know, your everyday furniture, you know, everyday groceries, all the way up to, you know, goods and services, etc. So, you know, Shopee as a company, or e-commerce as an industry, has grown exponentially over the last couple of years. Now, now that we are starting to come into the sort of a endemic phase, where people are allowed to go out, you know, are more comfortable going out, people are more fully vaccinated. Obviously, you will see a slight pivot in terms of consumer behavior. But having said that, you know, the last 2 years has done a lot of good. You know, it has been a great catalyst in adoption rates. You know, people would otherwise not have used e-commerce because they were afraid of digital fraud. They were afraid that the online transactions are not safe. They were afraid of all sorts of things, you know, identity thefts, etc. You know, those fears are gone simply because over the last 2 years, people have gotten extremely used to it. And we're not just talking about, you know, members of our audience, digital natives, but also non-digital natives. You know, people are our parents' generations who have started to use MySejahtera on the phone, and then started to use, you know, Shopee on the phone, and before you know it, every other aspect of their lives, you know, gets governed by the app. But on to more other, you know, other changes in the industry, just to keep it relevant. I think one of the things that people have discovered is how connected the world is. You know, you realize that suddenly a war in Ukraine has got repercussions to those of us here. You know, even though, you know, for many of us, Ukraine is extremely distant. It's the other side of the world. I mean, one prime example that I can think of is this Indomie shortage in Indonesia. You know, and it subsequently turned out that, oh, Indonesia, you know, receives a huge bulk of their wheat from Ukraine. And because of the war in Ukraine, there's suddenly a shortage of what, you know, is a very typical local delicacy. You know, and you know, and you know, you start realizing that that's just one example of many. You know, because of a war in Ukraine, because, you know, oil prices and gas prices have gone up, suddenly, you know, around the world, inflation have shot up, you know, everywhere from, you know, US, Europe, you know, other parts of Asia as well. You know, you realize that goods that, you know, you expect to arrive at your doorstep very quickly or very cheaply, suddenly, you know, things are very different. Goods prices have increased, logistics prices have increased, logistics time have increased, you know, and this is where you suddenly realize how everything is interconnected. I know we are pushed for time, so you know, I shan't go too much into detail. I know we can go into a lot of aspects, but the other thing I want to touch upon, you know, since we are on this topic of upskilling and preparing our fresh graduates for jobs, is, you know, a company like Shopee, it is fairly new. Shopee has, you know, even though it's the #1 e-commerce platform now here in Malaysia, we've only been around for 6 years, you know, and when you think about it, you know, it's a very short time frame, you know, to become very big. Now, we don't become who we are because we are one-dimensional. I think we have been, as a company, very prepared to try and fail and to experiment and to take on new ideas, new people, new energy. And when you start thinking about it, you know, a company that's been around for 6 years, you know, granted, a bulk of its people will be fresh graduates, you know, people like members of our audience, but you also have people, you know, more experienced hires who started their careers many years before, you know, e-commerce was even a thing. Now, for that to happen, you know, people have to have this mindset of constantly learning and constantly adapting. And so, you know, a piece of advice, I think, you know, to a lot of our young people out there is, never be afraid to constantly learn and constantly adapt, because even we as a company, the last couple of years has been great, but the next couple of years, who knows what will happen? There will constantly be changes. We, as a company, will still constantly be trying and learning and experimenting and failing and succeeding. And it's through this process of constant learning, constant refining, that's how we get to where we want to be eventually. And for someone to succeed in not just an organization like us, but also in an environment like what we have now, the post-pandemic environment where things are extremely different. We have to constantly adapt and constantly adopt this mindset of lifelong learning.
All right. Thanks, Kenneth. I think just further to the point of what you mentioned earlier about convergence and interconnectivity, I think that's something that a lot of us should sort of put a bit more thought on these days, because you're right in that things are just sort of converging and just sort of connecting with each other in ways that we might not have thought possible before, or that we might not have assumed were even related. I think being able to sort of take a step back and look at the bigger picture in that regard is something for us to sort of keep in mind as we think about upskilling and improving ourselves in this current era. All right. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing their thoughts with us today. I think this has definitely been a very deep discussion. Lots of great points. We will actually now move on and open the floor to questions from our audience members. Okay, so again, quick heads up on how this works. Okay, oops, having some technical difficulties there with our slides. Beg your pardon for a moment. Okay, but if you are here in the chat room here with us today, you can press the reaction button to raise your hand, and we'll call on you to sort of turn on your camera and mic and respond. Okay. You can ask questions which are directed to an individual speaker, or you can ask questions which are just open to the floor, and we will see who's going to answer them. Okay. Or if you are watching in the live chat, you can sort of leave your questions in the chat box, and my team will be sort of forwarding them to me as well for me to sort of pose to our panelists today. All right, so the floor is open now. Is there anyone here in the call with us who would like to ask any of our panelists a question? We have one person who has raised their hand. I'm trying to find this individual. Here we go. Gentleman named Omar Mahmoud. Okay.
Yeah. Can
yes.
you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hi. So pretty much like I'm a first year like in my bachelor's, so I'm sorry if the question sounds a bit stupid, you know what I mean? But like I'm genuinely curious about this. So I see like how you guys talked a lot about like not restricting your field to what your degree is and like being open-minded to everything outside in the field. But like, let's say, for example, you studied petroleum engineering, right? And then 1 year later, petroleum engineering industry just goes to crap, doesn't work anymore. And now you have an interest in like, let's say software engineering, and you want to apply for that, right? But then like all the hires out there always have like this restrictions and their requirements, going on, like how you need to have a diploma in computer science or a related field, et cetera, et cetera. So is this like just a move by the HR companies to like limit the amount of applications they get? Like, or should you just not waste your time on applying for people who have these requirements because you don't have that diploma or bachelor's, or you get my point, right?
Yes, I get your point.
Right.
Okay, it's a very good question, sir. Perhaps what I can do is maybe I'll direct this question at Naaman. Naaman, what advice do you have for someone who's looking to make a pivot into coding or software engineering, even though they come from a sort of non-coding background?
Right. So I think what you said, Omar, just now is perception. I know a lot of companies that doesn't look into this area. That means, right? Okay, take for example, Juristech. We hired electrical engineers as software engineers, and even other engineering fields. And that particular guy that came from electronic engineering actually proceeded to become the head of all our programmers. Right? We even hired a fashion designer to become our professional services engineer. And she proceeded to become one of our best business analysts until she need to go back to Indonesia. So we don't actually look at your field of degrees or studies, right? So I must it out for you. When you say that to filter or what, yeah, we filter by CGPA, WAM, don't judge us. Yeah, we filter by that because it's just too much. Please don't judge us. Yeah. So, but when it's not too many applications, oh yeah, you'll take the time to scrutinize every application, every resume, and then we decide, hey, this guy writes well, this guy, and we call for interview. And during that interview is where we ask that question. And if you are a petroleum engineer and you want to be a software engineer, just YouTube it up. After a few weeks, you have the basics. All right. So go ahead, pivot all you want. All right. Don't think that we don't hire because the field is different. In jurists, and I'm sure in other companies as well, do hire. And actually, our journey here in the panel can make you see, right? Subjects from biotech. We actually have a few biotech people that proceeded to become our professional services engineer and this what do you call this, software engineers, right? Yeah. So,
yeah. So you're saying it's like about finding the right company, you know, like a company that accepts all the different fields and so. And even if it's like restricted, just give it a shot.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, because that's in our circles, we have this thing called you have applied or you have studied a course that's what we consider FIT, FIT. You know, FIT stands for future in trouble. Like liberal arts, okay, I'll stop here. So, but we don't judge you. The moment you apply for any of our position, you are not hampered or limited by the choice that you made 3-4 years back.
Yeah.
I think, Omar, maybe I'll just add on to what Naaman shared, right? While companies can actually be very accepting of people of various backgrounds and course of studies and all, I think as an individual, once you've gotten, let's say, the role, I think it is also onto the individual to ensure that you get that sort of certification or the qualification for you to continue to on this topic of skilling, right? And so that you can also be better as you progress. So I think it works on both ends. While the platform can be given to you, but you must also be to ensure that yourself you can stay relevant on that platform. I think that's very, very key.
Yeah, and I think I just have one thing to add. What Naaman and Sophia said are correct. You as a candidate, you must ensure that there's a reason why the company wants to hire you. But on to the other side, maybe just to share a bit, some companies also have their context to look at. If I am hiring for a team of people, I don't necessarily need just the same type of person again and again. It may be worthwhile to take a chance on someone with a slightly different background, just for diversity, because they bring in good ideas, they bring in a different point of view. So you don't always know necessarily what the company wants. There will be companies who will just be looking for, the exact fit, as per what their criteria dictates. But then there are also other hiring managers who may look for diversity because they value what diversity brings. So you should never be afraid of applying, of taking a chance. It may open a new door, but on the same token, do your homework beforehand. Be prepared to justify why they should take you. Take a chance on someone who may not necessarily have the same sort of a conventional background as some of the other candidates.
All right.
Yeah. If I can add on a little bit more on top of what our panelists have shared, right? Okay. We would always encourage people to explore different career opportunities, sure. But at the same time, we also need to understand that maybe some career path, they would require certain certification. Yeah, especially like auditors, they would want you to have a professional license. So of course, we can't just simply take in anyone to be an auditor if you don't have the right foundation. But that's not to say that it's not possible at all, because like for EY, we do have auditors who come from mechanical engineering background, and how they did it was that they actually took professional papers while they were working as mechanical engineers, because they know, okay, that's my passion. I want to be an auditor. And while I am working as an engineer, I can still take up this ACCA paper, for example. So that is considered part of upskilling as well. Yeah. So knowing where you're heading, so having that direction is important. And once you know where you're heading, you know what you're required to do. And like and it's not impossible, of course. So like for us, I personally know a colleague in EY who actually came from forestry degree, but is now working in our robotic process automation team. So yeah, it's the options are unlimited. It all boils down to you and how you want to make it work and how you want to carve your career path.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you so much to all four of our panelists for answering that question. I think there were quite a few different perspectives on that particular topic there. So we hope that has answered your question, sir. Okay. All right. Now, I'm aware that we're a little bit behind time. Okay, but we're gonna squeeze in roughly about 10 minutes for additional questions. Okay. So we have another interesting question which is coming to us in the chat today, actually. Okay, and this one I think is actually a bit interesting. Okay, in terms of upskilling yourself, all right, would an internship be considered a more viable route towards upskilling yourself, considering that that's generally seen as more of an established way of showcasing soft skills or showcasing skills to an employer, or should you just focus on upskilling in terms of like certain hard skills? Perhaps I could open the floor to any of our panelists who feel like they want to take a crack at this question. Internships versus focusing on like upskilling in terms of hard skills.
So maybe I take a go, right?
Sure, Naaman, go for it.
So actually it depends, right? Then on several things. So one, internship. Do you need that internship to fulfill anything? All right, is it part of your academic requirements? If not, then does it pay like nearly an actual salary? And you need that sustenance for you to, go on with life, right? So if these tools are no, then it again depends on what you want to achieve. For me, my personal opinion is internship is great because hard skills, you can YouTube it up, you can Google it up. Soft skills, working in a team, collaboration, getting reprimanded, getting offended, offending people, hopefully not. That is so like YouTube can't give you that. So doing internship, my personal opinion, is way better. All right. Unless that internship doesn't give you any allowance.
Yes. I think we should all agree unpaid internship should be a thing of the past.
Yes.
All right. Would any of our other panelists like to take a crack at this question? About internships versus focusing on upskilling in terms of courses and hard skills.
I'm aligned with Naaman actually, but it's not to say that you definitely it's compulsory or mandatory for you to do an internship. But I would say, and I agree with Naaman, that internship actually helps a lot, in building your character and building your skill, because it's the experiences that you get from your internship that you cannot get anywhere else. And for employers, for example, when they see you as someone who has done an internship, then number one, at least they have a reference. If they need to find out more or do some background check, they can call someone or based on the references that you provide, if they need to, then at least they can get some insights as to how you did during your internship period. And the second thing, like for us, for our interns, if the interns have done a good job during their internship, or they are meeting the expectation of their role, then they can be given a conditional offer to join as a full-timer. So that actually builds you a path for you to start your full-time job. And that's why don't discount or don't belittle the importance of internship in order to get the skill and the experiences, because it's not the same as, you know, watching YouTube videos. Those experiences are priceless.
Yeah. All right. Thank you to Eliana and Naaman for responding to that question. We have a question from one audience member addressed to Sophia. Okay. This question is about how you got through your interview for a non-science related job, given your background in biotech. So I guess broadly, one way that we can look at this question is do you have any tips on how to get through the sort of assessment process if you are applying to a role that does not seem to sort of gel entirely with your educational background?
Yeah, so Isaac, if you can just pardon me, for the previous question, I've just got a little point that I wanted
Sure,
to
go for it. Go
add
for
on,
it.
right? It's a lot on discussion around internship and other experiences. I think, at the end of it all, it's really all about what sort of experience that we're looking at. For example, it can be a volunteering project, or it can be all sorts of experiences that you can design it to be your internship. So what I want to also emphasize on is that internship, not necessarily it has to be what an organization provides for you. I think an internship can be any sort of internship that you want to sort of design that internship experience to be like. Yeah. So it can be a combination if you want that YouTube video to be part of it, so be it, because at the end of it, it goes back down to the purpose and intent of the learning. Yeah. So I think that's at least, a little insight as to where I see which one matters, because it all comes back down to you yourself. What do you want to learn? Yeah. So on to this question, whether how I ran through my assessment, I think how I actually, honestly, I did not plan my career to be in the bank. And I definitely, the bank wasn't a natural choice for me. I did not, just go in and say that I want to be part of the bank. It was actually through an engagement with Maybank at that point in time, 13 years ago. So at that point, Maybank was doing a massive transformation, and thankfully at that point, the job advertisement did not specify or you must have a degree in this and that. It was by design. And it was really by design that the bank wanted a very diverse pool of talents joining the bank. Yeah. So, and that was when that's how I stumbled upon maybe an opportunity with the bank. And how I went through the assessment is that, to my surprise, usually a typical selection process would start off with an interview first, but I never had to go through the interview. Only after multiple rounds of conversations, assessments, presentations, group discussions, my interview was the last stage. And it wasn't even called as an interview. It was very much around career conversation. It's all about aligning what I want to achieve as a person and how it is aligned to the bank's aspirations. So I guess, at that point, I actually was there at the right time when the bank was really looking into transformation and very welcoming of individuals and talents coming from very different schools of thoughts and ideas and views. So that was exactly what I did. And you've also asked about interview, or more so the conversation, what happened. I think the first question that I was asked as, and I continue to find that as a very good question to ask, is that tell me about yourself, but tell me something that is outside your CV that I've seen. And after the many hours that I've seen you as well, tell me something about what I don't know about you and what is outside your CV or your profile or your application. And I think that would be a very good conversation starter. I think we've also gone away with that kind of conversation, asking what your strengths and weaknesses are and all sorts, because we would have already observed you and we would have already gone through the strengths and weaknesses. So it's a lot about debriefing, understanding whether you yourself, you're even aware about all those things. So hence, it is not so much of just an interview, but it's more so of a conversation. I hope I've answered that.
All right. Thanks, Sophia. Just to cap things off, maybe I want to call on Kenneth to give a sort of similar take on this kind of question. What advice do you have for a candidate, who's going through the assessment process for a job role that may not necessarily gel with, what their educational background indicates?
Well, yeah, one of the things to realize, I think, and this is something for, it's probably best to look at it, as a way of finding out whether it's right for you and you for them. It's very much a process where you're both trying to acquaint with each other, both trying to find out whether these are of interest to either party, and also whether it'll work. Now, I have a bit of a guarded response to this, because part of me wants to say, just go be yourself, which I think a lot of people will tell you too. But on the same token also, you realize that there is a certain seriousness to a job application process. At the end of the day, you also have to ask yourself, do you want the job? Are you serious about the job? Now, and this is where, going back to our very first comment at the start of this session, we talked a lot about professionalism. It's great for people to pursue their dreams, pursue their interests, their passion, etc. And that is what makes you last in a job. If you find something that you like to do, you will do it, you enjoy doing it, and it won't feel like work that much. But on the same token, there's also a seriousness to it. The company has got objectives to meet. They need employees to contribute in a certain way, in a certain manner. And that's where you also have to put on your professional hat and, be properly groomed, well prepared, punctual. Your work is up to scratch. And so going back, touching upon the previous question as well, to what my fellow panelists have also said, it's always a combination of soft skills and hard skills that people are looking for. Now, if I had to choose, now obviously, as again my fellow panelists have rightly said, hard skills can be learned. It can be anything from reading a book to YouTube to other courses of study, but attitude, and your whole persona, how you approach it, your eagerness, your enthusiasm, your willingness to learn, willingness to get engaged with your team members. All those are a little bit more difficult, and it's partly also a personality thing. And this is where we have to constantly be aware, that once we are in an environment like this, where we have to work with other people, we need to contribute in a certain way. I would actually draw upon one anecdote, from a conference I was at many years ago. It's an entrepreneurs conference, and they were asking people, or entrepreneurs, is it better to have the best idea in the world and decent execution, or decent idea and the best execution in the world? And almost unanimously, most, if not all, the participants there said, look, I'd rather have a second-rate idea and a first-class execution rather than the other way around. And I think what it goes to show is that the ideas are probably not as important as execution. And when you talk about execution, what it means is every part of it has to work well. Teammates have to work together. If you guys spend half the time arguing over what to do, you're never going to get anything done, even if it's the best idea in the world. So similarly, coming back to candidates going for interviews or going for assessment centers, what a lot of companies, a lot of interviewers, a lot of future bosses look for are people who can fit into their company and hopefully, do well, run with it, work well with other people and contribute. If you are, a genius, but potential troublemaker, that's a huge red flag, because no doubt, you may have you may be able to contribute. The probability of that happening is maybe 1 in 10 or 1 in 100. The off chance that everything falls into place. Okay, your great idea would come to fruition, but the other 99 times, you end up arguing, and that's no good. That's disruptive. So go into interviews, into assessments with the mindset of yes, you do need to show to some extent your skills, your hard skills, etc. But also more importantly, your attitude and the way you work with other people, you work with your future teammates, and that probably is a better determinant of what makes a good employee, a good team member, than anything else.
All right, thanks, Kenneth. thank you as well for that great insight. That application and execution at the end of the day, are the parts that actually just tend to matter the most versus great ideas. All right, that's it for our questions. I think we reached the end of our session today. A very big thank you as well to our panelists for being such good sports and engaging with our audience members in the chat box. I see you guys there, okay? So before we wrap up today, we would like to just invite everyone who's here in the room with us to take a group photo. If we could ask you to please turn on your cameras really quick, okay? I'm gonna give you 3 seconds to do that right now. 3, 2, and 1. All right. Now, how this is going to work is we will just take one group photo. We'll make it a fun one because life is too short for boring photos, right? So just one group photo, and that'll be it. Okay. All right. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Excellent. Well, thank you so much to all of you who have been with us today. Thank you to all of our panelists and speakers for taking the time out of your schedules to sort of come here and share so much of your insights and wisdom with us. And to all of you participants, wherever you may be from, thank you so much for choosing to be here and to join us in this discussion. If you have any questions which you don't have the chance to ask, don't worry. You can reach out to your University Career Services office. Or you can connect with any of these panelists on LinkedIn, or speak to representatives from their organizations and ask all the questions you want to your heart's content. So with that said, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. And we hope that you found this session with us helpful. On behalf of Grad Malaysia as well, it's been my pleasure to host this session today. And we look forward to seeing all of you somewhere in the near future, whether on campus, online, okay, or to connect with you in all sorts of different forms. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.